December 18th is a day of revolution. December 18th is when Tunisia, the country of Tunisia, stood up and protested. And within just 29 days, they was able to kick out their dictator, Ben Ali. And so, let's see, this is on 2010, December 2010, the world was shocked as the Tunisian autocrat Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali, who had ruled his country for 23 years, was overthrown in a protest movement that lasted only 29 days. The event was soon dubbed the Jasmine Revolution, a symbolic reference to a blooming flower. Many doubted that this revolution would spread. It was only days later that massive protests rocked Cairo, resulting in the resignation of the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak, who had been in power for more than 30 years. While the fate of both countries are still unresolved, one thing is clear: the people are demanding democracy. And Tunisia, they stand up, the Tunisians stand up and they oust their leader. And it all started from a self-immolation. You had Mohamed Bouazizi, 26-year-old Mohamed Bouazizi, who had set himself on fire. They protested in Tunisia. Egypt protested, and then you had the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring was very much similar to the 1848 revolutions. It started in one spot, then it just quickly spread into about 50 different areas. By the end of February 2012, rulers had been forced from power in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen. Civil uprisings had erupted in Bahrain and Syria. Major protests had broken out in Algeria, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, and Sudan. Minor protests had occurred in Mauritania, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Djibouti, Western Sahara, and Palestine. Weapons and Tuareg fighters fighting from the Libyan civil war stoked a simmering conflict in Mali, which has been described as fallout. Mali eventually comes from the fallout of the Arab Spring in North Africa. When people decide to live, destiny shall obey, and one day the slavery chains must be broken. This was about dignity. This was about freedom. There was high youth unemployment. People were dissatisfied. And out of all the revolutions that had happened in the Arab Spring, Tunisia is the only one that was successful. Egypt, eventually the military takes control and there's a military dictatorship. The first elected president booted out. This is very similar. That happened in Haiti, right? The first elected president was eventually coup d'etat, or was removed from power by a colonial power. Regardless, there's lots. This is a day of revolution. December 18th started this. It started the whole thing. Let me talk about the self-immolation. Why did this happen? And then I'll bring. 6-year-old Mohamed Bouazizi had been the sole income earner in his extended family of 8. He was the breadwinner for 8 people. He operated a vegetable cart for 7 years in Sidi Bouzid, 190 miles south of Tunis, the capital of Tunisia. On December 17, 2010, a female officer confiscated his cart and produce. Bouazizi, who had such an event happen to him before, tried to pay the 10 dinar fine, a day's wages equivalent to $7 a day. In response, the policewoman insulted his deceased father, then slapped him. The officer, Fadi Hamdi, says that she's not even a policewoman. She was a city employee who had been tasked that morning with confiscating produce from vendors without a license. When she tried to do so with Bouazizi, a scuffle between him and Hamdi ensued. Hamdi says she called the police, who then did beat Bouazizi. A humiliated Bouazizi then went to the provincial headquarters to local municipality officials and to have his produce returned. He was refused an audience without alerting his family. At 11:30 a.m. and within an hour of the initial confrontation, Bouazizi returned to the headquarters, doused himself with a flammable liquid, and set himself on fire. Self-immolation, that makes me think of the Buddhist monks who were protesting the Vietnam War. They would just set themselves on fire. They did it ceremonially. He kind of did it just spontaneously. Public outrage quickly grew over the incident, leading to the protest, this immolation, and subsequent heavy-handed response by the police to peaceful marchers caused riots the next day in Sidi Bouzid that went largely unnoticed, although social media sites such as Facebook and YouTube featured images of police dispersing youths who attacked shop windows and damaged cars. Bouazizi was subsequently transferred to a hospital near Tunis in an attempt to quell the unrest. President Ali visited Bouazizi in a hospital on December 28, 2010. Bouazizi wound up dying January 4, 2011. Ben Ali tried to do some reforms and said he was going to change things, but in the middle of January he was booted out. So the revolution was successful, and then the consolidation of the revolution, the constitution, the setting up of a new government that was better, it was successful, whereas the one in Egypt was not. So the name Jasmine Revolution, where does it get its name? There's also the rose, orange, tulip revolutions. Where do any of these get their names? Pundits, this is an article by Slate.com. Jeremy Singer-Vine. Pundits are calling the mass demonstrations in Tunisia the Jasmine Revolution. In the last decade, we've had Rose, Georgia, the Rose Revolution, which was a Georgian revolution, Orange Revolution, which was in Ukraine, Tulip Revolution, which was in Kyrgyzstan, the Green Revolution, which was we use to refer to major revolutions by the country: American Revolution, Russian, French, Haitian Revolution. Today's more fanciful names can be traced back to the Czech Velvet Revolution of 1989, a nonviolent, velvety, gentle uprising that led to the overthrow of the communist government when the Georgians revolted in November 2003, forcing President Eduard Shevardnadze from power. The opposition leaders looked for an equally catchy name that might help their similarly peaceful movement. Initially, they copied the Czechs wholesale and called it the Velvet Revolution. After a week or so, they switched to the Revolution of the Roses. So that was the Georgians, the Revolution of the Roses, a reference to the flowers student protesters had given to soldiers and to the rose that opposition leader Mikhail Saakashvili carried into parliament, where he demanded Shevardnadze's resignation. By mid-December, the media had settled on the more mellifluous Rose Revolution. In terms of what revolutions have been successful, which ones were not, what can we do to make sure that the revolution is successful? We could look at this. There's the electoral revolution, which is what Bernie Sanders has called for. And there's full-blown, violent revolutions. But then even after then, you have to make sure that the revolutionary fervor, sticks around. So realizing the Czechs and the Georgians were onto something, opposition leaders and other former Soviet states followed suit. When the Ukrainians began to rise up in 2004, they took meetings with Georgian and American strategists who stressed the importance of branding. The resulting Orange Revolution drew its name from the campaign color of its leader, Viktor Yushchenko. Kyrgyzstan's 2005 uprising ran through several names, including the Lemon Revolution, because yellow is a color of change, like on a traffic light. A youth movement leader told the Times of London, the Pink Revolution, the Silk Revolution, the Daffodil Revolution. The press eventually settled on the Tulip Revolution. All these monikers were international nods to the Rose and Orange uprising, although unlike their predecessors, they lacked clear reference. Political scientists joke that the color revolutions are neither. They're more like unplanned transitions, and Rose, Orange, and Tulip could just as easily refer to fruits or flowers. Political scientists. Serbia's bulldozer revolution of 2000 is sometimes called a color revolution, despite its name, because of its similarities to the Georgian, Ukrainian, and Kyrgyz movements it influenced. So Serbia's bulldozer revolution, Orange Revolution, Tulip Revolution. You have Portugal's Carnation Revolution of 1974 is generally not grouped in with the other cutely named uprisings, despite the fact that carnation is both a flower and a color, because Portugal was never under Soviet control. You don't need a revolution just against the Soviets. The Rose, Orange, and Tulip revolutions unleashed a rainbow of imitators. In early 2005, Kuwaiti suffragettes started with what some called the Blue Revolution. Around the same time, the assassination of Lebanon's prime minister triggered a Cedar Revolution. Lebanon, Cedar Revolution, Kuwaiti, Blue Revolution, Rose Revolution, Orange, Tulip. Even President George W. Bush jumped on the bandwagon when he tried to market Saddam Hussein's overthrow as the Purple Revolution, purple for democracy, after the ink used to provide fraudulent voting in the 2005 Iraqi elections. Belarusian protests in 2006 were dubbed by turns the Jeans Revolution, the Denim Revolution, the Cornflower Revolution. This is Belarus. In 2007, the press called the anti-government demonstrations in Burma the Saffron Revolution, Saffron, saffron. In 2009, Mir Hossein Mousavi's followers adopted his campaign color for Iran's Green Revolution. Getting back to Tunisia, who thought up the name Jasmine Revolution? Jasmine, that's beautiful, right? Jasmine and the Disney character. So a blogger, it seems, Zeid El-Hani, who is also a journalist at the Tunisian newspaper Es-Sahafa, claims he coined it in a blog post published on January 13th, the day before President Ben Ali fled the country. Jasmine is Tunisia's national flower. In Tunis, the capital markets and boulevards teem with vendors selling makmoum, stick-like bouquets of the flower jasmine. Jasmine, how beautiful, right? Just like Aladdin. And so the December 18th should be commemorated as a day of revolution from here on out. I know I'll be celebrating it. Day of revolution. So overthrow fascism and authoritarianism, and let's get some culture into this world.